Hey, welcome. It's Brian, and today I wanted to talk about my top 5 prog rock drummers. And I thought it would be a great way to start is to make it 5. That way we can kind of get some conversations going about who and whatever might be your favorite drummer in the prog rock arena. And that also starts a discussion on, are all of these actually prog rock drummers? That could be one of the questions itself. So, with that said, I of course am going to start with Bill Bruford, as everyone knows, him being in Yes, obviously King Crimson for many times on and off, and even in Genesis, then his own bands with Alan Holdsworth, and his Earthworks band, and then being with all sorts of stuff. But I think the most of his work, at least through the 70s and 80s and 90s, I would kind of consider more progressive rock. With some, there's obviously some exceptions in there as well. But he is probably one of the most important prog rock drummers as far as I'm concerned. Next would be, of course, Neil Peart, who is just an important player in music and is well loved by many non musicians and musicians alike. And I would say, to me, it's the whole three of them working as this unit, because it's just three of them that made it so great. These kind of super memorable, great riffs that Alex Lifeson came up, and then you have basically Neil adding all of this great kind of articulation and kind of punctuation to the piece. And then, of course, Geddy's incredible bass playing, kind of holding it down but being active. And so, as far as the rhythm section goes, it's such an incredibly unique thing that Rush had. And I know Neil is well missed by many, including me. And, like I said, I don't think he's the most popular drummer among non musicians, but there's just so much to be said for his popularity that is beyond him being a drummer. And he was just such an interesting person and really helped basically Rush become what they would become. He obviously wasn't on the first record, but you already see huge changes between the first record and Fly By Night. And by the time we get to 2112, or actually even Caress of Steel, the second side, you've got a completely different band. And I would attribute that to basically Neil being able to play things that maybe Alex and Geddy were coming up with that John Rutsey or that type of drummer would have never been able to kind of handle and make them grow into the band they were. So I give Neil a ton of credit for helping the band become, what they would become for sure. Next would be Pierre Moreland, which was in the band. He was the leader of the band Gong, at least his version. I never got why he named it Gong, and the other version from, the like 70s, like early 70s to 75, which is a band I like as well. I love both versions, but Pierre Moreland, of course, featured Ellen Holdsworth on the Goze, or however you pronounce that, then Espresso 2. And there's actually a live record where I think he's on half and Mike Oldfield's on the other half. I would love to track that down. That was kind of a cool, kind of maybe even a bootleg. I can't remember. But I really always loved Pierre Moreland's band on those two or three records. They were really, really good. And he had such an interesting approach. It was, well, maybe more like a Bill Bruford thing, but then you added in all of this cool percussion, whether it was like xylophone or I'm not sure what kind of tune percussion it was, whether it was xylophone or marimba. And he just had a really cool focus on percussion in that band for sure. And so, anyway, I've always loved those two or three records a lot. And I can't say I've listened, or they're pretty hard to find anymore as far as the other recordings he did. So, anyway, Pierre Moreland is another guy I always had a huge kind of impact on me. And I thought, oh, that's how a band should be, with all this great percussion and super technical drumming. The bass player, the guy from Magma, Francis Muzet, I think that's how you say it, gave it this really kind of almost like a proggy weather report kind of feel, but great feel and really kind of a great rhythm section. And then you have Alan playing with them. And so some really cool, kind of more straight ahead rock stuff from Alan for sure. But as I mentioned in my top 5 Alan Holdsworth recordings, that's where I like Alan's playing, is this kind of 75 to 80 is like, to me, the sweet spot. Next on my list is Phil Collins, who, as you know, was in Genesis from, I believe, maybe the second record on through, well, I mean, till he stopped playing. I personally, for the longest time, liked everything between Abacab and the Genesis record, the one with the shapes on it, the super popular one. Now, recently, I listened to Abacab, and I can say there's 2 songs on it I like. So I've been going further back, and it's really cool that they are such a interesting compositional band. It's like a pastoral, more of a texture oriented band. There's not necessarily you hear lots of rhythms going on, and it is a very complex band. The compositions, every time I've seen them getting broke down, they're really, really interesting. And it takes an incredible drummer to kind of handle that. And Phil did an incredible job, and he had a great tone. And I just think he was understated, but yet he really delivered a great kind of articulation to the music that maybe a more basic drummer could have done it, but he really added some kind of flair to it and some gave it a little more kind of girth, I guess. And then you have Phil playing with Brand X, and Brand X is not necessarily my favorite like fusion proggy band, jazz rock band of all time, but all the players are so great, and Phil's drumming's incredible on those records. That is another band I'm going to revisit after kind of talking about it more, because as I do these things, I kind of go, oh, yeah, you know, Christian Vander from Magma. That's a guy I would probably put on here. I just, that is not one of my cornerstone prog bands. So, but he would definitely fit on this list for sure. So, anyway, Phil Collins, as we know, became a huge star, huge, more into singing than playing the drums. He had Chester Thompson stepping in, incredible drummer from the Zappa band before that. And it must have been a sweet gig for him, because they got very, very popular after Duke. I mean, Duke was a big record, but man. So yeah, I think Phil is important to the progressive rock continuum for sure, and I've always liked his drumming. No matter how much, like I said, no matter how much I struggle with kind of the discography of Genesis, meaning, the Peter Gabriel years, the kind of just those post records, Wind and Weathering and A Trick of the Tail, I really like those. Um, so those are that's my sweet spot before the band gets super popular, but really great, interesting records for sure. Next on my list is Clyde Bunker, who, is a very understated drummer, but yet really important to whether you call Jethro Tull prog rock or folk rock. I don't give a shit. But I kind of consider it prog rock just because there's long form pieces in there. There's distorted guitar, there's keyboards, it's just, to me, a prog rock band. So anyway, call it what you want. But Clive, I've been really listening from basically Stand Up through Thick as a Brick. And I believe he's on all of those records from 70 to 1975. And those are really important records. Obviously, Aqualung and Benefit and Stand Up. And some of those records are better than other, but that is the sweet spot for me, at least with Jethro Tull. That's when they're at their best. Ian's songwriting's at his best, and just as a band, listening to some of Thick as a Brick, you really get these long form pieces that, I mean, are super intricate, and you really hear some great stuff, whether it's the keyboards or drumming. But I think Clive comes from that early, like, a Bill Ward, more of a rock drummer who was pushed into a band or went into a band that became this really interesting non-rock band. He has that kind of tone in his drums, like a Bill Ward or something like that, but just really tasteful. And I thought you need a great drummer to make those songs kind of come alive. And I was listening to, again, Thick as a Brick. I've been listening to that a lot lately. And I was just blown away by not only the keyboard playing, but I really kind of latched onto the drumming. And I wouldn't have put Clive's name on here 2 months ago. In fact, I might not even have remembered his name, but I thought I'm going to do a list and it won't be surprising, but I wanted to put his name on here because I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, he's an incredible drummer and really made Jethro Tull come alive on those 5 really important records. Um, there you have it. There are my top 5 prog rock drummers. Please put your favorite in the comments. I'll see you soon.